So, hello everybody. My name is Sumit. I'd like to welcome you to a brand new episode of Liv Sattviko Talks, taking Indian brands global. Here we bring you eminent retail personalities from different parts of the world to give you a perspective of things you need to consider while taking your company overseas. In today's episode, we are joined by Ms. Chelsea Hawk. Chelsea is the CEO and founder of Enter and House, and a very dear friend. A longtime food lover and chef, Chelsea graduated from the New York University with a degree in nutrition and dietetics. After graduating from NYU, she moved to LA to pursue a plant based culinary degree at Matthew Kenney Culinary, owned by the like named celebrity vegan chef. She then joined YUMI, a D2C venture backed baby food company, as one of their top 10 hires, serving as their head of content and in house nutritionist for 3 years before launching Enter. So, welcome to the show, Chelsea.
Thank you, Sumi, for having me.
Thanks a lot for joining us. How are you doing?
Doing well. Excited to be talking with you today.
Same here, Chelsea. So, Chelsea, before we move on to the topic for tonight, we'd love to know your story. I understand you're a New York girl, right?
Yeah.
So, how does
uh,
someone who's from New York, who's a chef, a dietitian, how does someone like that enter into this world of retail?
yeah. So, I mean, everything that I've always been interested in has revolved around food, especially healthy food. My mother is actually French Canadian. And so I grew up cooking very traditional French food, lots of meat and potatoes and cheese and cream and so, which I love that kind of food, but I always was, trying to make healthier versions of all of these dishes that I love and trying to incorporate as much color as possible into everything that I make. And so, have been a lifelong chef and just lover of food. And so, as I thought about what to study in college, I was very drawn to New York City. And what I loved about, I found a great degree program at New York University. So I studied nutrition and dietetics. And what I loved about going to NYU is, unlike a lot of universities in the US where you're kind of confined to a campus, at NYU, the whole city is your campus. And so I had so many opportunities to work for all different sizes of food companies and culinary education companies. And so I've just always loved the space. And then, I always wanted to go to culinary school as well, but I felt like to go to a traditional French culinary school would be a little bit repetitive, just given the style of cooking that I grew up with. And so that's why after NYU, I went to LA and I went to culinary school there. It was plant-based, vegan, and it was just so different than the style of cooking I grew up with. So I loved it. And then kind of just naturally made my way into a startup called YUMI, which is an incredible baby food company. And it kind of merged my passion for healthy food and then also just helping raise a healthier generation. And so it's been really cool to see how quickly they're growing. And so, from there, I launched Enter because I wanted to be a part of, just helping brands scale in the most meaningful way possible.
You've been growing up in the US. How do you see the food landscape changing? I mean, when you started, and what are now the things that are in trend now?
Yeah, it's very interesting to see how the things that people are most interested in evolve. I would say right now the biggest and most interesting categories to me, there's a lot of alternative protein companies coming out right
Yeah.
now. There's a lot of superfood companies. There's a lot of collagen as well. Collagen is really taking off. So those are the categories that we're definitely the most excited about. But I think as a whole, especially in the wake of coronavirus, people are very interested in anything that will boost their immune system. And then, of course, just I think people are starting to become a lot more thoughtful with the types of foods that they're putting in their body. And so it's just nice, I think, too, with coronavirus that it's encouraged people to cook at home more, which is so refreshing to see. I think before coronavirus, we live our lives kind of so quickly and we don't take the time to nourish from within. And so it's been really great to see people in the kitchen for once and, just really taking control of their health.
Yeah, and it is amazing to see the vegan and the plant protein movement. In my experience, I've seen these just growing by the day, especially during this whole coronavirus, as you correctly predicted.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, plant-based is big, and just great plant-based sources of protein, and it's so much more available. It's so much easier now, I think, for people to adhere to a plant-based diet than it used to be. So it's great.
Yeah. So Chelsea, a lot of our audience who are entrepreneurs from India, who are business owners, they'd love to know how is this whole perspective around this healthy food space. How is this whole perspective, and how is this catching up? And do you see a lot of demand for Indian products there in the US? How do you see this shaping up?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I think it's interesting because, of course, you've been consuming turmeric your whole life, but I think
Yeah.
Americans kind of just caught on to that, of course, in the last few years.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's like all the rage, turmeric lattes and golden milk lattes and all these things, which is funny. But it's nice to see that people are paying attention to something that's so heavily incorporated into Indian culture. And so I do think that there's a big, demand for Indian superfood products because, of course, you guys are doing a lot of things right. And so yeah, it's really nice to see. I definitely think that there's a growing interest in Indian products and Indian brands, and I think the turmeric obsession has paved the way.
Yeah, it is crazy, right? Turmeric latte, funny that you pointed out. Turmeric latte is something that we've been growing up drinking. It's
Yeah,
we call it haldi doodh. Doodh is haldi is Hindi for turmeric. Doodh is Hindi for milk. So we've been drinking this since I can remember. But
yeah,
yeah. So Chelsea, you mentioned about these products, and I understand you also run a distribution company. You have, you're working with one of the largest brands as their 3PL and distribution partners across the
yeah.
US. Do you see any concerns that you feel when brands are looking at, entering the US market? Do you see any concerns that they should address with respect to the whole from a distributor's perspective?
Mhm. Yeah, so I mean, the US is just such a massive market. So it's definitely one that requires a fair bit of strategy and just research ahead of coming here. There's a lot of, as you prepare to enter the US market, there's various regulatory and legal hurdles that you have to go through. And then it's really important to find warehousing and a distribution partner that can set you up in the right places. And so, what I always encourage brands is to, one, do the research, take a look at the competitive landscape, see what types of similar products are already being sold. One thing that I love about Sattviko is that it's a ready to eat product. And so it's going to be really convenient for people to just integrate into their daily lives. And I
Yeah.
think that that's really important because as more Indian brands enter the US market, having something that's easy for consumers to consume is really great. Whereas, there's certain products like a single ingredient, product that you have to mix with something that kind of requires an extra layer of education. And so I think, to be in the space that you guys are is great. And so, but yeah, there's definitely, a big demand for it. And so I think it's just really important to spend time thinking about
Yeah.
what are the retail locations that make sense for you, where are your, target consumers, where are they predominantly based. And then also, once you kind of get set up here, just leveraging your story and your background and, getting press opportunities and getting, just any chance that you get to just get your story out there. I think that that just helps sell products so well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And one of the things, we are aspiring entrepreneurs. There are a lot of people like us. We keep on meeting a lot of food companies here, and entering into the Walmarts and the Targets. It's like a dream for a lot of entrepreneurs, people who are sending products to the US. How do you see that space? You guys are involved in taking companies and listing them with all of these big ticket players. How do you see that market coming up? And any advice that you have for entrepreneurs? What should they take into consideration?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Targets and the Walmarts of the world are definitely the big goal. I always recommend, though, for your first 1 to 2 years that you're selling within the US market, I think it's really important to focus on smaller retail locations and smaller stores, just because you want to start gaining some traction and just have some brand awareness built up here before you put yourself in a large retail location. And the other thing about it is that it's awesome to get in Target, and I could help get a brand get into Target right off the bat. But if the brand doesn't do well, it's going to be really hard to get back in later. And so I think it's really important to be strategic about when you approach these big retailers. You want to make sure that there is enough brand awareness that already exists so that you have customers that you can go on social media, or you can go into a smaller retail store, and those customers, you make them aware that hey, now you can buy all of our products at these large retail chains. And so just kind of that way you have a way to guarantee some initial foot traffic in those large retailers.
Yeah, and how what is the importance of having a good broker there? Because I understand that US is a very broker driven. You need to have strong people there. What would you suggest? How do people identify who's a great broker? How do people identify the kind of companies that they can reach out to? And what would you point out as the hallmarks of a good trader or a broker there?
Yeah. So you definitely need a broker to get into any of the large retail locations. We've talked to dozens of brokers to build our team of brokers to really make sure that we have the best. And all of our brokers, of course, we look for people that specialize in health and wellness products so that they feel comfortable educating buyers about the products. But one thing that I really admire about our whole brokerage team, is that some brokers that are out there will just kind of take any products that they can get their hands on, and they might not necessarily believe in the product, but they feel confident that they can sell it. And I think it's really important, though, for the brokers themselves to believe in the product and to actually like the taste of the product. Because if you're not genuinely, a consumer of that product, it's going to become a lot harder for you to sell the product. And so when we, give products to our brokers, they try everything and they make sure that it's a product that they genuinely like consuming. And it just makes it a lot easier for them to go out and pitch the product.
Yeah. And Chelsea, I'll just a couple of last few minutes. I just want to focus on the whole vegan and this space, right? Uh,
Mhm.
what exactly? So there are a lot of people, in India. Traditionally, we've had a very vegan, vegetarian, diets. In fact, we have multiple sections just into the vegan space. Uh, you know,
Yeah.
from Ayurveda and yoga and all of those things. So when thinking about products for the US, right?
Mhm.
wh- Especially if people want to focus on the vegan and that space, what kind of products would you recommend, or you're seeing when you're interacting with the retailers? What kind of products would you recommend people, do more R&D into or start thinking around?
Yeah, I think, any kind of vegetarian or vegan product is great. Any product that's naturally gluten-free also is doing really well right now. And I think the big thing that has been a very welcome change in the way that we shop for products is, consumers are finally paying attention to the ingredients in a product. And so just, the cleaner the product, the better, the fewer ingredients, the better. And so it's really nice to see, people finally realizing that, in a lot of shelf stable products that we have here, it's just filled with a lot of junk and just, gross kind of preservatives and colors. And so it's it's nice to see things that are naturally colored just through, superfood powders and things like that, and just, as clean as possible.
Yeah. Great, Chelsea. I mean, thanks a lot for answering, a lot of our questions. And I'm sure once this goes out, there'll be a lot of people reaching out for follow-up questions, and we'll be happy to patch them on to you. So towards the end, if you would like to take a minute and tell us more about what you're doing at Enter, and if you would want to plug anything, so here's a minute, and if you would want to tell people about Enter.
Yeah, absolutely. So Enter is an end-to-end solution for international brands that are entering the US market for the first time. So we'll help prepare you for US market entry, get you through all of the regulatory and legal hurdles that you need to tackle before you come here. And then when you're ready, your products are ready, we help set you up with warehousing. And then from there, we'll take your products and we'll try to get you into as many retail locations as we can. So, what's great about it is that when you do this on your own, sometimes you have to work with so many different groups and agencies and people. And so we really want to make it as easy as possible for our brands. And so, we just love working with brands that have a really great story and that are just so passionate about the products that they have. And so we're really excited to begin working with brands in India and, in addition to all of these other countries that we work with across the globe. So we're really excited. And thank you, Sumit, so much for having me.
No, in my experience, Chelsea, I really love the way that you've been interacting with a lot of brands, and it's very rare to see the CEO working with hand in hand with all of the brands, and I think a lot of our good wishes to Enter. So
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah. And to you guys as well. It's been a pleasure working with you all and just really looking forward to getting you guys into more stores and in the hands of US consumers.
sure, thanks a lot, Chelsea. Thanks a lot for joining us. Take care.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a good weekend.
Same to you. Happy Easter.
Bye.